Welcome to the Deep Dive. We dig into complex source stacks, pull out those key nuggets, and help build the foundational understanding you need.
And today we're diving deep into Kurt Donald Cobain. Often he gets boxed into these two roles, right? The 27 Club tragedy or the, quote, spokesman of Generation X.
Right. But our sources paint a picture of someone way more complex, a really groundbreaking artist, but driven by deep internal contradictions. They fueled his art, but also, well, defined his legacy.
Exactly. And that tension, the real artist versus this like accidental icon status he got landed with, that's what we're focusing on.
Yeah, we've gone through a ton of material covering his whole life. From growing up in Aberdeen, Washington, his pretty unique artistic methods, some surprising influences, that chaotic personal life, even his weird thing for cheap guitars.
Our mission here is really to get past the mythology, to
Yeah.
understand the actual person, the conflicted guy behind that anti-establishment image.
What really stands out, and I think we need to get this up front, is just how uncomfortable Cobain was with that whole role.
Oh, profoundly. He hated being called the spokesman. He felt like the sheer scale of Nirvana's success just led to this massive misunderstanding, almost a willful misreading of what he was trying to say artistically.
So that friction, his punk roots, which were super important to him, clashing with this just overwhelming global fame machine.
That's where the real story is, that constant battle. We need to keep coming back to that.
Okay, so let's unpack where he came from, the environment that first shaped him. Kurt Donald Cobain, born February 20, 1967, Aberdeen, Washington.
And the family background's interesting. There's Irish ancestry. The Cobain name apparently comes from County Tyrone, immigrants back in 1875. And music was definitely already there.
Yeah, how so?
Well, his mom's brother, Chuck Freidenberg, was in a local band, the Beachcombers. And even more surprisingly, maybe, his great-uncle Delbert. He was actually a professional Irish tenor, had a career, even appeared in a 1930 movie, King of Jazz.
Wow, okay, so it was in the bloodline, kinda.
Seems like it. And early on, Kurt was apparently a really happy, excitable kid, singing Beatles songs like Hey Jude, ELO stuff, apparently from age 2.
But then came the big fracture point, his parents' divorce when he was 9.
Yeah. And according to everyone, his mom, Kurt himself later,
Yeah.
that was the moment. His mom, Wendy, said his whole personality just flipped. He became withdrawn, defiant, really started acting out.
And he talked about feeling ashamed, right, deeply ashamed.
Intensely ashamed.
Yeah.
He said in '93, he just desperately wanted that typical family. Losing that, it created this like bitter resentment towards his parents that lasted for years. It wasn't just, teenage angst. It set up this core instability.
And the instability just kept rolling, didn't it? His dad, Donald, remarried a woman named Jenny Westby, even though he'd apparently promised Kurt he wouldn't.
Right. And suddenly there's a stepmom, her 2 kids, and then a new half-brother, Chad, born in '79. Kurt just rejected all of it, saw him as replacements, resented not being the only boy anymore, insisted it wasn't his real family.
Wow. And meanwhile, his mom's situation wasn't exactly stable either.
No. She started dating this guy who was abusive. And the sources confirm Kurt witnessed domestic violence. There was this one really awful incident where his mom ended up in the hospital with a broken arm.
God, that's rough for a kid to see.
Incredibly rough. And apparently, despite seeing that, she didn't press charges initially, stayed in the relationship for a bit longer. It's just layer upon layer of chaos. And you see how this feeds into that outsider persona developing? If the world feels that unstable, rejection becomes like a shield.
You can see that rejection playing out in weird ways, too, like the sports thing.
Oh, yeah. His dad pushes him into wrestling, Little League.
Yeah.
Standard stuff. But Kurt's response, pure sabotage. He'd deliberately get pinned instantly in wrestling, strike out on purpose in baseball, just to undermine his dad's expectations.
It's passive resistance, but pretty defiant.
Totally. It's a pattern, right? That kind of passive-aggressive control pops up later with fame, too.
And then in high school, this exploring identity, he becomes friends with a gay student.
Yeah. And predictably, gets bullied for it. People assume he must be gay, too. But his reaction is key. He claimed he liked that association.
Why?
Because it made people leave him alone. His quote is pretty famous. I started being really proud of the fact that I was gay even though I wasn't. It wasn't about sexuality necessarily, but about carving out psychological space, wanting to be left alone.
Yet at the same time, his defiance could be, well, kind of nonsensical, alongside the serious stuff.
Exactly. You got police records showing him arrested for spray painting, ain't got no how, whatchamacallin on cars.
Yeah.
Pure punk absurdity.
Right next to something like God is gay, which is a powerful statement.
It shows that internal conflict, doesn't it? reaching for meaning, but also just reveling in the chaos, the meaninglessness of punk.
So when did the shift towards music really happen?
The pivot point seems to be his 14th birthday, 1981. His uncle gives him choice, bike or used guitar.
He chose the guitar, obviously.
Yep. Started trying to learn big rock stuff, Led Zeppelin, Stairway to Heaven, that kind of thing. But quickly moved to writing his own stuff after figuring out simpler things like Louie Livy.
But the real game changer was meeting Buzz Osborne, right? From the Melvins.
Absolutely. Osborne was his gateway, introduced him to the essential punk and hardcore bands, The Clash, Sex Pistols, Black Flag, stuff that really resonated.
And Cobain said seeing the Melvins play live was huge for him.
Yeah, he claimed the first live show he ever saw was them playing free outside the Thriftway supermarket where Buzz worked. He wrote about it in his journal, said, "It just blew me away. I was instantly a punk rocker."
So that connection was fundamental.
Totally. He didn't just like them. He said he learned almost everything about how to approach music from the Melvins. That DIY punk thing became his new tribe, in a way.
And this new focus meant school kind of fell by the wayside.
Completely. Dropped out of Aberdeen High just 2 weeks before graduation. Didn't have the credits.
Which led to his mom laying down the law.
Yeah. Get a job or get out. His stuff ended up in boxes. That was pretty much the final break with his family home.
And this leads into that period of supposed homelessness, the whole something in the way story.
Right. The iconic image of him living under the bridge over the Wishka River. It's part of the mythos. But Christian Novoselic later kind of poured a cold water on that, called it revisionism.
How so?
Novoselic basically said, yeah, Kurt hung out there a lot, but trying to actually live on those muddy banks with the tides, pretty much impossible.
So maybe an exaggeration, shaping the reality into art.
Seems likely. It highlights how the Cobain myth was being built early on, maybe even by him, turning pain into powerful stories.
And that resistance, that nonconformity, it carried into his relationships too, right? Like with Tracy Morander.
Yeah, she was really important in those early broke years. Worked, supported them, apparently even stole food sometime.
But there was friction there.
Big time. Money stress. Plus, Kurt just refusing to get a regular job. And that friction directly inspired About a Girl on Bleach.
Which is one of their most straightforward melodic songs.
Exactly. But the twist is, Tracy didn't even know the song was about her until years after he died, which tells you a lot about how guarded he was, even with people close to him.
And then there was Toby Vale from Bikini Kill. That relationship sounds intense.
Super intense. Driven by his infatuation, but also massive anxiety. Like, he literally threw up the first time he met her.
Actually.
Yeah. And that exact reaction inspired a lyric in Aneurysm. Love you so much it makes me sick.
Wow. So he saw her as an equal, kinda, in the punk scene.
Definitely. An artistic and intellectual peer. But it seemed doomed because, well, he apparently wanted this sort of traditional, almost motherly comfort from her. And she, quite rightly, saw that as pretty sexist, especially within their counterculture scene.
Makes sense.
Sources say a lot of his songs from that period were really wrestling with the feelings around that relationship, the turmoil, the longing.
Okay, so all that personal turmoil sets the stage for the band really taking off. Nirvana. It starts with Chris Novoselic finally agreeing to jam, right? They knew each other from high school.
Yeah, they started practicing upstairs in Novoselic's mom's hair salon. Classic beginnings.
But finding the right drummer took a while.
Oh, yeah. They went through a few. Aaron Burkhardt, then Chad Channing, who actually played on Bleach, their first album on Sub Pop in '89.
But Dave Grohl was the final piece.
Absolutely. His drumming was just so powerful, so precise. He joined just in time for them signing to a major label, DGC, and recording Nevermind in 1991.
And then, boom. Smells like Teen Spirit.
Boom is right. Instantaneous. And just terrifyingly huge. It wasn't just a hit song, it was a whole cultural moment.
It blew the doors open for grunge, didn't it? Suddenly, all these Seattle bands, Alice in Chains, Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, were massive.
Exactly. Alternative rock went from college radio curiosity to dominating MTV and mainstream radio. Like overnight, the early 90s were suddenly defined by that sound.
And this is where that resentment starts to build in Kurt.
Yeah, big time. The media needed a narrative, right? So boom, he's crowned spokesman of Generation X, and he just could not square that massive commercial success with his punk ideals. He felt totally persecuted by the media.
He even compared himself to Frances Farmer, the actress.
Yeah, who he saw as another victim chewed up and spat out by the system. That's how intensely he felt violated by the attention.
You hear it in his interviews, that quote about being raped over and over again by the public eye.
They'll take every ounce of blood out of you until you're exhausted. It's brutal language. Shows he saw fame as this violent intrusion.
And he predicted it wouldn't last. It will only be another year, and then everyone will forget about it.
Yeah, which reveals how much he just wanted it all to go away, just disappear.
So this tension, punk integrity versus fame, does that explain why he sometimes seemed dismissive about his lyrics? Grohl said he'd insist music comes first, lyrics second.
Right, focusing on melody. But then he'd get incredibly frustrated with journalists doing those second-rate Freudian evaluations of the lyrics.
Especially when they got the words wrong, which apparently happened a lot.
Yeah. So which is it, If they're secondary, why I care so much? He knew his lyrics were complex. He called them a big pile of contradictions. Part sincere, part sarcastic, pushing back against cliché bohemian ideals.
And he really agonized over them, didn't he? Supposedly procrastinated, changed them live.
Which, makes it hard for journalists trying to pin down the meaning. But it shows they mattered to him, despite what he sometimes said.
And that original concept for Nevermind, the boy side and girl side,
totally confirms the intent. He wanted one side about his early life, defiance, and the other focused almost entirely on the songs about Toby Vale. That's deep thematic organization, not just hooks.
He was definitely processing some heavy stuff through the music, like Polly.
Oh, yeah. That came directly from a newspaper story from '87. A 14-year-old girl kidnapped, assaulted, but she escaped by basically manipulating her captor, gaining his trust through flirting.
Shelling.
Yeah.
And he wrote it from the perspective of the attacker.
Yeah, which makes it even more disturbing, more powerful. It's a raw look at trauma and violence. It tells you something that Bob Dylan himself picked out Polly as their best song. So the kid has heart. Dylan saw the depth.
And then there's Scentless Apprentice on In Utero, inspired by a novel.
Yeah, Patrick Süskind's Perfume, the story of a murderer. It's this really dark, complex book about a guy born with no scent who murders women to steal theirs and create the perfect perfume.
Okay, so not exactly light reading.
Definitely not.
Oh.
And him latching onto that,
Yeah.
it shows his lyrical ambition. He wasn't just writing about teenage angst. He was digging into alienation, the grotesque human darkness, using these literary anchors.
Yeah.
Totally undercuts the idea the lyrics were just random.
Let's talk influences. The Beatles were huge for him, right? From the start.
Foundational. His aunt remembered him singing Hey Jude as a toddler. He called John Lennon his idol. There's that story about him listening to Meet the Beatles for hours right before writing about a girl, even on tour, listening to Queen Zeppelin.
But for the actual Nirvana sound, the Pixies were key.
Absolutely critical. He was totally open about it. Said Smells Like Teen Spirit was basically him trying to rip off the Pixies. That soft, quiet verse, then loud, hard chorus dynamic. That was their signature.
And that dynamic really cut through on the radio back then, didn't it?
Oh, yeah. Most rock and metal was just loud all the way through. Nirvana offered this psychological journey. Pulled you in with quiet vulnerability, then bam, cathartic explosion. It perfectly mirrored his own emotional landscape,
Beyond the big names, he really championed smaller indie bands, too.
Devotedly. Used his massive platform. Wearing Daniel Johnston t-shirts, getting the K Records tattoo, bringing bands like the Butthole Surfers and especially the Meat Puppets on tour.
Yeah, that unplugged appearance with the Meat Puppets was iconic.
Totally. Having them on stage to play their own songs, that was huge. It wasn't just lip service. He was trying to genuinely bridge that gap between the mainstream he was stuck in and the underground he came from.
And Unplugged also featured Where Did You Sleep Last Night? The lead Belly song.
Right, which he discovered through William S. Burroughs, the writer. Burroughs mentioned Lead Belly in an interview, basically saying rock kids should listen to something with real soul.
And that led to Cobain actually collaborating with Burroughs.
Yeah, kind of wild. First, he had this side project, The Jury, planning to record Lead Belly covers, but then in '92, he actually worked with Burroughs. Added this background guitar noise, bits of Silent Night, apparently, to a spoken word piece by Burroughs called The Junkie's Christmas.
The track was called The Priest, they called him.
That's the one. But when they met in person, Burroughs apparently had this really chilling observation about Kurt.
What was that?
He said later, reflecting on Kurt's death, something like, "It wasn't an act of will for Kurt to kill himself. As far as I was concerned, he was dead already."
Wow, that's heavy, coming from Burroughs.
Yeah, like one master of darkness recognizing it in another, suggesting he saw the deterioration way before the end.
We also have to touch on his social advocacy. He was very outspoken.
Very. Fiercely against sexism, racism, homophobia, sexual assault. Proudly mentioned Nirvana playing a gay rights benefit show against Oregon's Measure 9 in '92.
And he used the liner notes, right, to speak directly to fans.
Yeah, the Incesticide liner notes had that powerful statement. If any of you in any way hate homosexuals, people of different color, or women, please do this one favor for us. Leave us the fuck alone. Don't come to our shows and don't buy our records.
That's pretty bold for a huge mainstream band actively telling bigots to go away.
Extremely bold. It showed he was serious about using that platform, even if he hated having it sometimes. He wanted it to stand for personal life, health, and the final struggle.
Okay, we need to shift gears now to his personal life, which was obviously incredibly public and often chaotic.
Yeah.
Starting with Courtney Love.
Right. They met, well, the exact date is a bit fuzzy. Sources differ, 89 or 90. But they were both leading these influential underground bands at the time.
And Kurt was initially hesitant about getting involved.
Yeah, he apparently said he was determined to stay a bachelor. But he also admitted later he liked Courtney so much it was a really hard struggle to stay away.
And the wedding was pretty unconventional.
Gary. February 24th, 1992, Waikiki Beach in Hawaii, just days after a tour ended. Courtney wore a dress that once belonged to Frances Farmer, that anti-establishment symbol again, and Kurt, green pajamas, said he was too lazy to put on a tux.
How many people were there?
Only 8. Dave Grohl was there, but Chris Novoselic wasn't, which maybe hints at some friction already brewing.
Then came their daughter, Frances Bean Cobain, August 92, and even her sonogram ended up as art.
Yeah, on the Lithium single cover. Shows how much they blurred the lines between personal life and public art.
But things got really intense after that Vanity Fair article came out in 92.
Oh yeah, that was a bombshell.
Yeah.
Lynn Hirschberg's piece. Courtney admitted, or seemed to admit, to using heroin while pregnant.
She later clarified it was before she knew she was pregnant, right? But the damage was done.
Totally. The article sparked this huge controversy. Led to Los Angeles County Department of Children's Services getting involved, suing them basically, claiming they were unfit parents due to drug use.
And Frances was actually removed from their care for a bit.
Yeah, temporarily, for a short period right after she was born. For Kurt and Courtney, who both came from fractured families and seemed to really want stability, that must have been absolutely devastating. Publicly shamed, daughter taken away, brutal.
Alongside all this relationship drama, Kurt was dealing with serious health problems, physical and mental.
A whole slew of them. Diagnosed with ADD as a kid, later chronic bronchitis, minor scoliosis, depression, narcolepsy, manic depression was mentioned too. It's a heavy list. Seems like a baseline of physical and psychological struggle was just always there.
And the big one was the chronic stomach pain.
Yeah, intense pain. He claimed it was psychosomatic, from anger and screaming, so bad it made him vomit constantly. And this became his justification for his heroin use.
Which started pretty early, like 1986, and became a full addiction by late 91.
That's the timeline reported. And he explicitly said he was determined to get a habit because of the stomach pain, as self-medication. He described the relief, saying after 3 days straight of using heroin, the pain was gone. He framed it as a desperate measure for physical agony.
But Buzz Osborne had a different take on that.
A starkly different take. Osborne, his longtime friend, basically called bullshit. Said Kurt made it up for sympathy and used it as an excuse to stay loaded. Buzz argued the vomiting wasn't from some mystery stomach ailment. It was just a normal side effect of heroin use.
So we have these two conflicting narratives, even from people close to him. Was the pain real, or a story to cover the addiction?
Exactly. It shows how tangled and maybe unknowable the core truth was. But regardless of the why, the addiction itself was having huge impacts.
Like before that Saturday Night Live performance in 92.
Yeah, he'd used heroin, apparently fell asleep repeatedly during a photo shoot, and was openly defiant about it, saying things like, "They're not going to be able to tell me to stop."
And then came the overdoses, near fatal ones.
Scary close calls. The morning after that SNL show in 92, he OD'd. Courtney managed to revive him. Then, before a show in New York in 93, another overdose.
And Courtney used naloxone that time, the reversal drug.
Yeah, she apparently had it on hand, injected him, brought him back, and then he went on stage and performed like nothing happened. Nobody in the audience knew.
Jesus. Talk about living on the edge.
The band was operating right on that precipice. Biographer Charles Cross said Love had seen Kurt near death from overdoses more than a dozen occasions by early 94.
Which brings us to March 1994. Things really started to unravel.
Yeah, they were touring in Europe. He got diagnosed with bronchitis and laryngitis in Munich, flew to Rome for treatment, and on March 4th, He overdosed on champagne and Rohypnol.
Which Courtney later called his first suicide attempt.
Definitive language from her. And the chaos around it. Dave Grohl remembers getting one call saying Kurt was dead, then minutes later another saying he was stable in the hospital. The whiplash must have been unbearable.
Back in Seattle, things didn't get better. Police were called to the house on March 18th.
Yeah. Love called them. Said Kurt was suicidal, locked himself in a room with a gun. Police came, confiscated guns, pills. Kurt denied being suicidal, said he was just hiding from Courtney. It's impossible to separate the depression from the intense marital conflict by then.
Then came the intervention, March 25th.
Organized by love, involved friends like Dylan Carlson, record execs. Kurt apparently reacted really angrily at first, scornful. But somehow, by the end of the day, he agreed to go into a detox program in L.A.
But just before he left, he asked Dylan Carlson to buy him a gun.
Yeah, March 30th. Asked Carlson to get him a shotgun, claiming it was for self-protection. Carlson bought it for him. Believed him. It was the same gun Kurt later used.
He went to the rehab facility in L.A., but didn't stay long.
Escaped on April 1st. Just walked out, flew back to Seattle. And on that flight back, he happened to sit near Duff McKagan from Guns N' Roses.
Who he famously disliked, musically.
Yeah, but McKagan said Kurt seemed happy on the surface, yet McKagan felt, quote, all of my instincts that something was terribly wrong. He sensed the distress underneath.
Then, April 8th, 1994, his body was found.
Tragically, yeah. At his home on Lake Washington Boulevard. An electrician installing a security system found him. The medical examiner estimated he died 3 days earlier, April 5th.
And there was a suicide note.
Yes. Addressed to Boda, his childhood imaginary friend. It talked about his exhaustion, losing the excitement for music, both listening and creating. And it included that famous Neil Young line.
It's better to burn out than to fade away.
Yeah. Which is itself such a contradiction, isn't it? Romanticizing destruction over the kind of quiet artistic evolution he sometimes seemed to want.
The public reaction was immediate and huge.
Massive. A vigil in Seattle drew around 7,000 people. Nirvana sales just skyrocketed globally. There were reports from record stores in Seattle describing this pathetic scene of people rushing to buy albums they didn't already own. The tragedy was instantly commodified.
Dave Grohl called it probably the worst thing that ever happened to him.
Yeah. But he also said, sadly, that he felt like he'd been emotionally preparing for it for a while, believing sometimes you just can't save someone from themselves.
Decades later, his influence is undeniable, isn't it? He's seen as one of the most important figures in alternative rock history.
Absolutely. That angst-fueled songwriting, the raw vulnerability, the anti-establishment stance, it genuinely broadened what mainstream rock could be about. Proved that chaos and pain could connect with millions.
His induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2014 felt inevitable, made him maybe the most famous member of the 27 Club.
Yeah, but what's interesting is how analysts looked at his death. Paul Lester wrote about the myth-making machinery kicking in immediately. The idea being that his suicide kind of froze him in time, prevented him from, quote, sullying his reputation with the complexities or compromises or potential failures that might have come later.
His peers certainly recognized something unique in him, Billy Corgan calling him the Michael Jordan of our generation.
High praise. And Lars Ulrich from Metallica pointed out that fans felt a connection to the real person in Kurt, not just an image. That perceived authenticity became the gold standard for alternative music after him.
Let's talk about that equipment paradox. It's fascinating. His sound was so iconic.
Oh, the most iconic, yeah. But he got it using basically junk.
Yeah.
Budget guitars, cheap imports, pawn shop finds.
Which fits his whole worldview, right? Junk is always best.
Exactly. He said it was partly necessity, too. Finding good left-handed guitars was genuinely hard and expensive. So he'd grab cheap right-handed models and just flip them over, modify them.
Like that Univox High Flyer.
Yeah, played it flipped. He liked Japanese-made Fender Strats, a 65 Jaguar. His favorite was apparently a 69 competition Mustang. But even that he called cheap and totally inefficient, said they sound like crap.
So the gear itself wasn't precious to him. It was just a tool. Explains why he smashed them so often.
Totally expendable. Get the sound, get the catharsis, smash it, get another cheap one. Pure punk ethos.
But then, the ultimate irony, what that junk is worth now.
It's staggering. That Martin D18E acoustic he played on Unplugged, the one modified for lefty playing, sold for over $6 million in 2020. Most expensive guitar ever auctioned.
$6 million for a guitar he probably got just because it worked for him.
Unbelievable. And the Mustang from the Teen Spirit video, $4.5 million in 2022.
It's the perfect symbol of his legacy's contradiction, isn't it? The anti-consumerist icon whose tools became these multi-million-dollar trophies for the super rich.
Exactly. Total paradox.
And the story around his death itself, that hasn't faded away either.
No, not at all. The Seattle Police Department apparently still gets requests every week to reopen the investigation. Shows how unwilling some people are to accept the official finding.
And those crime scene photos released in 2014 didn't exactly quiet things down.
Right. Photos showing his hospital bracelet from rehab, his foot near shotgun shells. They were just factual parts of the record, but releasing them just reignited all the speculation and arguments that still divide people.
His story continues to be told in films, too.
Yeah, a whole range. From controversial docs like Kurt and Courtney to the authorized montage of Heck, even the docudrama Soaked in Bleach that pushes conspiracy theories.
And his influence pops up in unexpected places, like the Batman movie.
Yeah, director Matt Reeves explicitly said he used Nirvana's Something in the Way, that song linked to his supposed homelessness, as the key inspiration for Robert Pattinson's really isolated, kind of broken Bruce Wayne. Cobain's image is still the shorthand for the haunted outsider.
Danny Goldberg, his old manager, had an interesting take, called Cobain arguably the last of that era. Meaning he bridged that gap, like the Beatles did, where music could be massively popular, huge hits, but still connect deeply with the artistic, intellectual underground. Pop and substance coexisting on a massive scale. Thoughts and takeaway.
Which kind of brings us full circle, doesn't it? Back to that central struggle of his life. Trying to manage all that internal complexity, the art, the identity questions, the physical pain, the addiction, with the way fame just flattened everything into this simple spokesman label he hated.
Exactly. We've seen how tangled his art was with his pain, the divorce fallout, building that outsider shield, the health issues, drawing on everything from Beatles pop to Burroughs' darkness. He fought so hard against being simplified, wanted people to see the nuance, the politics, even through the sarcasm and contradictions.
So thinking about how desperately he wanted privacy, how much he resented the media intrusion, feeling raped by it, as he said, here's the final, maybe uncomfortable thought. Decades after he died, his private journals get published. His guitars sell for millions. Police files get poured over weekly by the public.
Yeah.
His choice to burn out rather than fade away cemented the myth, didn't it? But it also seems to have guaranteed that society's never-ending hunger for the real Kurt Cobain keeps consuming the very privacy, the very space he fought so hard to protect while he was alive. It's a profound irony we're still living with.